Hello crafty friends, it's Beverleigh here over at Crafting Chaos, and as we did the word book in my previous video, people were saying that they'd seen something similar with, on Create and Craft with Crafter's Companion. So I've had a look on and I see that they've also got this like cascading down idea. Now, I'm not saying that mine's identical, I don't want it to be identical to that, but using that idea, I can also show you how to make the file for use on your scan and cut. So if you don't have many dies, or you don't have a die cutting machine but you have a scan and cut, it's quite straightforward and easy to get that actual effect, if you will. So basically, to do this file, all you need to do is create these two shapes, and that's it. So you've got this like trapezium and also this sort of like tag shape, if you will. It's like an inverted tag. So you could use just a tag if you find a tag shape on the internet, or you could make your own, and that's what I did, but it's entirely up to you. So having a look in your basic shapes, there's lots of other things that you could have on the end. You could choose to have something like that at the end if you wanted. Maybe it's just bring that up to the top for a second. And what we're looking at is selecting both of those, and then I'm just going to remove the overlap. I'm just going to duplicate that one, and I'll just drag this side out a little bit, and then we can see a bit more of the mat, and also take it down a tad. Get rid of the shapes, and then we can see what we're doing. So we're basically aiming for that shape and that shape, but I'm just showing you an alternative. If you wanted a more sort of flag effect, you could just do this by chopping off the end of the point. So you'd select both shapes, process the overlap in the edit menu here, the second icon down, edit, process the overlap, and you need to subtract. And if that happens, all that's happened there is you've got the wrong part on top. So if you undo, we actually need this part to be on the top. So we're going to go to the arrange and bring to the front. Now, when we click here, it should select that first. If it was this one, it would be selecting that, because we're selecting where they are actually overlapped. So I'm going to select both, just line them up, and then process the overlap and remove the overlap. So if you get that message that you're struggling to actually subtract or something like that, it's because you've got to have the one that you want to use as the cutting implement, if you will, which is like a virtual pair of scissors. That's got to be on the top. So now that's to be another type of flag that you can use. So if we just did a couple of duplicates for that. So if you look at your shapes that you've got, your basic shapes in your scan and cut, and think about how you could use them as something like this. So if you did mum, you could do dad. Actually, we could do dad, and then it would be something people could use for Father's Day possibly, because I'll include this in the file that I put on my blog. So I'm just going to select it. I'm just going to leave the font as is, but obviously because we're in Canvas, I'm just going to move that out of the way. I'm just going to select this and move that out of the way too, because it's just a little bit in my way at the minute. My mat's getting a little bit cluttered. And those are my two basic shapes. We'll take another one of those, so we've got 3 basics, so then you can add any letter of the alphabet to that and personalise it to your heart's content. So now we've got this, I'm just going to, at the moment, all of those letters are grouped together, so we need to go on second icon down, which is edit, come down to process overlap, and we want to divide, and that'll split the shapes up into their individual parts. So then you just load them onto the bottom of your shapes. I'm just going to zoom in a bit. So this is a little bit done by eye. You can actually line the one shape up with the other and scooch it along till you like the position, because obviously they're not symmetrical, so you can't actually mirror them, if you will, that way. So what I'm going to do is line up where I think it's okay, and then I could count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that would be the overlap. So we'd select both then, process the overlap and weld. So that's just effectively welding your letters. So again, now as your A is symmetrical, you could bring it up so it's just touching, select them both and centre it, because that'll put it smack in the middle of that one. Move it up for 5, so that's gone up 5 again, same as the last one. Process the overlap weld, and then if we bring in the D again for Dad, in fact, if you wanted it to be an identical one to that one, because obviously it's the same, we could just duplicate that one. Now, so we need, first of all, this one needs to be, we'll put some colour in so we can see what we're looking at, and then you can see how they look. So there's lots of different ways of adding colour on the screen, just to get a feel for how you like it. And we'll just make that a nice bluish colour, whatever. You can just play around with it. This is just a purely visual, just to give yourself an idea of what it's looking like. And maybe a red one. Just take the opacity down a little bit. So once you've got that, because you can get a feel then for what your actual file would look like. So then you'd stack them up. So you want this one to be underneath. And I think at the minute it's on top. So we'll arrange and send it backwards. So now it's underneath. And this one needs to go arrange and send to the back, because we want that right underneath everything. And at the minute it's still not quite underneath. So send to the back. And this one needs to move forward. So which one's D? It's because we've got the opacity down that we're seeing it. I've just realised when you've got that, you need them on to be 100%, because otherwise you can see through them. Silly me. Obviously the opacity means that you can actually see through the shape. So we've got the D. That one needs to go back a layer. So just back. And then you can arrange them. This one will be at the very, very back. Once you've got it roughly where you want it to be, we can line them up on the screen by doing second icon down, and I align the middle. So that's another alternative for you with a flag end. So if, and obviously equally, any of these shapes could also be rotated by 90 degrees. So if we rotate that 90 degrees, actually it's minus 90, so we'll edit undo that, because we want it to rotate the opposite direction. So if that happens, it's just negative 90 that we need. And again, if you wanted, you could actually do a flag book, just go in that way if you wish. So that's the other option. And again, just weld any letter on. So we'll edit undo that one, so we've got that extra end. So basically, once you've made your ends, you can do whatever you want. Now I'll just quickly run you through. I'm just going to move all these off to the side, because I'll include everything in the file that I put over on my blog. So I'll show you how I got to this thing here. So again, I went on to basic shapes. I brought myself on a square or a rectangle, whichever you want to call it. It's actually a rectangle if we're being correct. And then I also brought myself on a circle. And we need these two shapes to be the same. So we're going to make that one 4 by 4. So 4 inches by 4 inches. And we'll make the circle 4 inches square. And 4 inches circle, sorry, diameter, not square. Obviously, it's not a square, is it? So then we're going to line that up so that we get this nice rounded end. But before I do anything else, I'm going to take a duplicate. Now, I've got a shortcut that I've made for my Mac. If you haven't, to make a duplicate, you right click and add duplicate. But I only want the one, so I'm just going to delete that one and move this to the side. I'm then going to select both the square and the circle and line them up on the vertical axis. So now, one's directly on top of the other, and I can weld. So that's kind of giving us a rounded edge, if you will. And then all I need to do is shrink the circle down a little. So I'm going to shrink it down and squish it just a tiny bit. Position that over that part like so. Select both, line up vertically again, so now that's directly in the middle of that shape, select both and weld. And then if you want, then you can drag it out and make it wider, or you can do it proportionally, make it smaller. You can make it less tall, like so. So that's that one. And obviously you could resize it until you're happy with the end. So that's how I did that one. Okay. So the next thing we're going to look at is how I came up with this shape. So this shape was basically started off life as a triangle. So I just brought on, excuse me, where are we? A triangle. So I brought that on, and if you can look at it where we're up to. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it like so it's in that orientation. Okay, so what I need to do now is, if we look at that there, that's kind of the top bit that we've got there, that angle and that angle there. So what we need to do now is bring on a rectangle that we can use to chop a chunk off this. So I'm just going to free rotate my rectangle so that I can chop off that part there. So I'm just lining it up, and to make sure we get it exactly where we want, I'm just going to zoom in on this part here, and then I need that selected, and I need this corner here to be in line with that corner there. So if needs be, you can always just use your arrow keys to select and move where it needs to be. Gone a little bit too high. So I just need to once you've done this, remember you only have to do it once, and then it's going to be fine. So I'm just down one, maybe that's right. Right, I think that's good. So we're going to now go on display, and we're going to zoom all them to fit to mat size so that we can see what we're doing. So I'm going to just move that one out of the way, and then just check that one's on top by clicking on the overlap, and whichever one shape it selects is the one that's on top. Now the other way you can do it is looking at your layers, but because I've got so many layers on the mat at the moment, it's still not really helpful. So what I usually do, just to check it, is check where the overlap and the shape that we want to act as the scissors, because we want it to cut along this line, effectively trimming that part off to give us an angle here. So what I'm going to do is select both of those shapes, process the overlap from within the edit menu, go down to process the overlap and subtract. So now you can see how we're getting to that shape, and it doesn't have to be the exact same angle. It's entirely your choice, and I'm just going to stretch that out a little bit, and then we need to bring on a rectangle or a square once more, and we're just going to chop off that part there. So again, we're using the square as scissors. So again, if I click on the overlap, I can see that the square is on top. So that's the shape that's going to cut from this one. So it's going to use that line to take off this chunk of portion of the triangle. So again, selecting both, process the overlap, which again is in the second icon down for edit, and process overlap and subtract. So now we've got this basic shape. So then you can shrink it in, so it's more like that kind of shape. And it's not exactly the same, and yours won't be either, but that really doesn't matter. Now, obviously, once you've got that basic shape, that's like your sort of template, if you will, for any letter of the alphabet. Oops. So now that we've got it to that point, we can bring on text, and we could type in a letter. So we'll do X just for a change, just in case somebody needs to do one with an X on. And you can readjust it, and then you line that up to the bottom. I've done it a little bit big, so remember, I could have increased the size of that, the heart, you can increase or change the size and what have your dimensions to your heart's content. So once you're happy with the placement, and again, if you were going to do several letters, you might want to line them up to the bottom and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or something like that, so that the overlap is consistent on all of your letters. And then you select them both, it doesn't matter which one's on top in this case, and you just click process the overlap, which again is in the edit menu, second icon down, process the overlap and weld. So that's welded the X to that. Now if you wanted to just put a colour in to see what it's looking like, just select your colours. I like to use my pencil crayons usually, but that's just a Mac thing. It's not available on Windows. So if we just did one more letter, say, you could do Christmas, couldn't you, if you was doing Xmas? So we could do another letter, M. And I'm not going to do them all because it's basically, once you've done it, it'd be better if you did the word together, then all your letters would be the same size. But position it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, select both, second icon down, process the overlap and weld. So again, now that's welded to that. And again, if you wanted to just put some colour in, select it. And then what we need to do is send that one to the back. So I'm just going to show you how they would stack, if you will, when you're doing them. You'd line them up so that your letters, and I've got a slightly different sized M, but that's because I didn't do them together. Obviously, if you're making a word, it would be, you do the full word, resize the letters to the size that you want, and then do your your divide function to separate them so that all of your letters at least start by being the same size. So I'm just going to click on this one again, the second one down, line them up to the top. So you'd kind of line them up like that, and then if you've got them all at the same size, your word would come out like that. So I've done Bella, and that's what it looks like. You could put that on a card, or you could do Christmas. Incidentally, you could do like a stocking shape if you wanted, and put Xmas across and have like a stocking sort of dangling down with your letters attached to the boot part, if you will. And that could look quite nice with Xmas or Christmas or something similar, but welded on. So that's the basic idea. So these are going the opposite way, but remember again that, where have I done now? So I'm going to just undo what I've done, because that was my original template one. That's why it's not fitting very well. It's not exactly the same shape. So I'm just going to take that back, because I'm going to keep that in as the file. So you would add to that, and remember again, if you wanted to, you can rotate it -90, I think this time, to get it facing in that direction, and you could weld your letters. So if we just do a B, that's what I've tended to do. Bella, and Bella, incidentally, I don't know if you've heard her barking in my videos before, is my beautiful little dog. And that's welded that to that. So you could even, if I edit undo that, I'm just going to take a duplicate. It's always a good idea to keep a duplicate. So if we did a couple, and we could do the, whoops, clicked the wrong thing. We could do an B-E-N for Ben. Get rid of that B there. And you could then position your letters, resize them all together. This is what I was trying to say before, like we've done. Then use the divide function to separate them. That way you know that they're all the same size to start with. Position them where you're happy, weld in the overlap there. You could do the E next, add that to it, select both again, and again you could do this more accurately by counting the number of spaces between the attached part, if you will. I'm just doing it by eye just to show you quickly. So I've got that one welded together now. I didn't want to do that, so just redo that bit, because obviously it's welded the triangle to that. I hadn't spotted that. I'm sure some people were screaming at the video going, no, you've got that selected too. And you're quite right. So then just put in this here And again, selecting both of those, weld, so that you can see how quickly, once you've done your actual basic shapes for your design, if you will, that you can then, you could have them cascading down. So you could line all of your angles up there like that, if you wanted, going down but across, if you get what I mean. So that you've got your letters sort of, I'm just lining up that sort of, you could put them like that on a card and have them all different colours. So that one needs to come to the front. And if we give it a colour, you'll see what I mean. Sometimes I think it's easier to visualise once you've got the colour than it is. So then you can see that we've just got them. Oops, that one needs to go to the back. So, oops, I didn't want to delete that. My mouse is super sensitive. Arrange centre back. And then we can position that. And all I've been doing is sort of placing the letters where I want them and lining up that diagonal to diagonal, if you will. And obviously you'd do that easier when you're doing it on paper. So that's another look you could have, and cascading down like that. And obviously that can go on a card, greetings, whatever. So you could have them going across like that. So the world's your oyster really with this when it comes to building these files. So they'll all play nicely together, the different ends. You can use that one, rotate that, and you have it facing that way. So all of these, and there's a different end again. So when you look at your basic shapes, look at them and think what you could do with them, because you could even have sort of a rounded rectangle. You could have a scalloped end on if you wanted, again by doing the same thing, welding, and then welding your letters to that. So you could get loads and loads of different ends. It's just mind-boggling the actual things you could come up with. So these are your main bits that you need, because once you've got these parts, you can build any word, because it just obviously then depends on the word. You can have any length of word, and you can reset. You could, if you wanted them bigger or smaller, you say for this one we could actually select everything and group it temporarily, make it smaller, or we can make it not quite, make it a bit something like that, and then we can ungroup, and then we've still got our D, A, D, like so. So you can do and resize whatever you want. So infinitely more choice. And just bear in mind that at the time when you're doing your letters, say for example, let's just show you here. So let's just pick one. We'll just do a B because we seem to have a lot of B's on our page. Say we were going to weld that onto there, like so. If we take a copy of it first, so it's identical in size, you could weld those two together. And let's give them a colour and you can see. And then you could make this another colour. Let's just close that down. Well, you cut it in a different colour. We'll just bring that one to the top. By arrange and bring to front. And then you can stack that one on the end of that one, so that you can have your different colours, and it's all, you know exactly where the placement needs to be, and it just stays there. So you've got an infinite number of choices, and sizes and lengths of words, 3 letters, 4 letters, 10 letters, whatever you want to do. You could do the whole alphabet and make yourself a little diary, or an address book, or a Christmas card list, one that you know, names and addresses of people that you send Christmas cards to every year, and instead of it being boring, you could make it really pretty but functional. So that's it for this tutorial. So I got some good responses from the word book one that I put out yesterday. So I hope people are going to enjoy this one and have a go at playing around with your own shapes, and I'd love to see what you actually come up with. I'm just going to undo that, and then we've got that basic shape back again, because we've got, that's the shape, that's the bit you need. Once you've got that end, or if you will the base part, you can make whatever words you want. So this is what we've got. So I'm just going to delete some of these things off for the file. I'm going to leave you those choices of end, if you will. I've missed one. Hang on. Have I done with that one? Oh, there we are. I've gone a bit too mad in my deleting. So I'm going to leave you 4 choices of end, but again, like I say, the ones that we did from the words going across yesterday can be used equally going down. Right, so that's it for this video. If you've liked it, please like, share and subscribe. Make sure you let your friends know where to find me, and remember that the files that I make on my YouTube channel, unless it's a lesson, sometimes if it's just a lesson then it's not appropriate, but if it's something like this, I make the file available freely over on my blog, which is Beverleigh 10 Blogspot. Okay, Beverleigh 10 Blogspot. If you just put Beverleigh Crafty Chaos blog, you'll probably find it. But remember, the Beverleigh is Leigh. So that's it for now. Make sure you continue to enjoy your Easter break. I'm sure we're all looking forward to the bank holiday tomorrow. So that's it from me, from Crafty Chaos headquarters. When I get up to my craft room, when my family have gone back home to the new northeast, I'm going to have a bash at putting some of these cards together. So I've actually had a request to see one put together. So I'll try to do a cascading down one and words to the right book in that video. All right, thanks for watching and I'll see you soon. Bye.